Thanks for joining us for another edition of The Small Business Show with Jim Fitzpatrick, exclusively on ASBN.com.
Hey everyone, Jim Fitzpatrick. Thanks so much for joining me on another episode of The Small Business Show, exclusively right here at ASBN.com. With Women's Small Business Month almost over this October, today's episode is especially timely. We're shining a spotlight on women entrepreneurs, those who are leading with resilience, innovation, and a commitment to growing their communities. Joining us today is Mieko Rassoulis, who is the Market Executive and Senior Vice President of Business Banking at Citizens, a company that I'm sure that you've heard of, and who works closely with small businesses to provide guidance and resources. And also Mieko Ozeki, who is the founder of Radiance Studios, a content strategy and event production company, also organizer of Vermont Womenpreneurs. So ladies, thank you so much for joining me on the show today.
Thank you for having us.
Sure. So let's start with you, Mieko, from your perspective there at Citizens, working with small business owners and specifically women business owners as well. What are some of the unique challenges that women face when starting or growing a small business?
Oh boy, well, one of the things about women is we try to be everything, right? We try to do everything ourselves, and we tend to be our worst critics. And so one of the struggles that we have is basically just that, trying to do everything. And with that being said, I think it's really important, whether we're entrepreneurs or whether we're, working for a company, to really build a strong network around us to help support us do that. Yeah. And, when it comes to business owners, it's really important that they take advantage of networking groups with other women business owners. There's not a lot of role models out there that are women. Yeah. And there are various industries that actually promote women business owners and, take advantage of going out there in the networking groups, learning more about other women and what they do, and then building your trusted network around you with attorneys, bankers, and, anybody else that you think can help you, accountants, I think is really crucial in order to guide you through.
Sure. It seems to me, and there's no scientific evidence to this, but just in my own experience in life, it seems as though women are more under scrutiny when they say they want to open up a small business or they want to start a business from their home or what have you, where the people around them oftentimes will say, well, now what do you know about that business? And you've got, the kids to raise, and you've got a home to take care of, and you've got all of these different things. And, are you sure this is the right time? And aren't you going to waste your money? And all of those negative things that are fed to that female prospective business owner, that often, that does not happen in a man's world, where if a man steps out and says, I want to open up a small business, it's almost like everybody cheers them on and automatically says, yeah, you can do it. That's a great idea. Go out and do that. And it's really unfair to women that they're put under this kind of scrutiny, right? When it comes time for them to open up a business.
There's more challenges, I would say, again, for us trying to be everywhere. I have a 10-year-old daughter who, I'm trying to raise to be strong, just like my mother raised me, to move ahead with confidence and not be scared of the unknown. But even she came home to me the other day and said, hey, Mom, Tay-Tay, we say Taylor Swift, is probably not going to have another album now because she's getting married. And wow. I couldn't believe that a 10-year-old who I've raised second generation of strong women still thought that, hey, this was it.
Right.
Taylor Swift.
That's right.
It's still out there, and no matter what we do.
That's right.
Unfortunately, it is reality, but we shouldn't listen to it. Yeah, just being honest. Continue moving on. Fear only holds you back.
That's right. Did you want to jump in on that and comment on that, as well?
Oh,
Yeah,
Mieko?
yes.
Yeah. No, I mean, I think like one of the things is, I think we also have to see that as a strength of being at home. We are the CFOs, we are the CEOs within our own
That's
households. And
right.
so there is a lot of skills that we bring into it. I think one of the things I find with the women that I interact with is that perfection is our enemy. We oftentimes people are hesitant to start a business because they wanted to get it perfect before they like officially announce that they are in business, even before they even register their
Right.
business.
That's right.
So many of them are like they'll be like, I need a logo and I need like a whole set of things, and I think just getting to the part of let's start the steps of start with a business concept and know that it's also not set in stone, that you're constantly at all businesses, we're all iterating our businesses, we're figuring out what services we're offering and also who's the clients we want to actually work with. And so I think that's perfection has always been the kind of stymie culturally for women business owners, in addition to kind of the cultural pressures and that we feel around us.
That's right. That's right. Mieko, can you share with us what it was like building your business, Radiance Studios?
Sure. So Radiance Studios kind of came out of kind of a support from my female supervisor while I was working in higher ed. I was always constantly training our interns and young people around how to improve their portfolios and how to have a better presence online. This is pre-influencer,
Okay.
so how to have a better presence on LinkedIn and having a website presence. And at one point she said, we don't actually pay you for that, so you should probably start a business. So I went through the whole process, like going to our a small business development center, starting a business plan, getting registered, and then really figuring out from there. But I would say we don't call it side hustles anymore. We call them side quests. So it was always a side quest for me until one day I decided, after being in higher ed for a while and other jobs, that I was like, I'm going to go fully into this side hustle to being my full-time thing. And so Radiance Studios, I started doing website development, and then eventually, because I was really good at event production, putting together events. But that was being as a solopreneur, and that kind of brought me to starting another endeavor because I was surrounded by other solopreneurs that I recognized that I needed to create a group of people to be able to check in and be themselves in little informal meetups. And that kind of blossomed over the last 8 years into what we call Vermont Womenpreneurs in 2018.
That's great. That's great. And what is the goal of the association? To help one another grow your businesses and to get started?
Well, our mission is to connect people to one another, foster collaborations, and celebrate people's wins, celebrate their stories at whatever point they are in business. So I've seen the gamut from people in the wantrepreneur stage. So I'm thinking about having a business, to somebody who announces I'm a business owner, to the point where they have grown and also have probably sold their business and are working on another entrepreneurial endeavor. So I've seen the whole spectrum, and that's what happens in our convenings. We try making networking less icky and about building relationships in addition to kind of the transactions, but the relationship building is so core to what our group does.
Sure. When you set out to open up your business, walk me through that. Did you get some pushback from people in your either in your circle of friends or family or what have you? Or did they cheer you on?
I think I didn't have a pushback as much from family and all. It was from myself, right? Should I start this?
Right.
Is this the time? And like Maria, I also have a 10-year-old, and I was a new mom, and really second guessing like whether I should put time to this, when the steadiness of having a full-time job when I was first starting was it's nice to have that.
Sure.
But I really felt more of the pressure within myself, and it's both the financial pressure, but also the capacity pressure.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. Maria, I see you shaking your head on that. I mean, you're working with women that are opening up businesses and growing their businesses, and obviously from your perspective there at the bank, there seems to be some self-doubt. It seems as though it's more among the women in business rather than the men. It's an unfair situation, right?
Yeah, what I would say is like with every business owner, I think capital is key, right? I think that the fear is, hey, do I have enough capital to see my dreams come true?
Mm-hmm.
And that's where banks can help with that and alleviate a little bit more of the fear of it and helping them with confidence. I think it's important for business owners, especially women, to have very candid conversations about those fears with their bankers and say, hey, or their trusted group.
Yeah.
This is what I'm afraid of, to what Mieko said, having a steady job means a steady paycheck.
Right.
When you're going in as a business owner, you've got to build that company from ground zero. So you need to have access to capital in order to grow the sales and then continue the lifestyle that you have.
Right, right, for sure. And when women come in to open up a business or to grow their business, it should be said that banks today, they don't take into account that, well, it's a female, so I'm not so sure we're going to give her a loan, but we'd rather give him a loan. Please tell me that that's far in the past, right? Right, right. I saw a report that was back in the 80s where it was less than 10% of the loans given from business banks were to females. And that number has grown substantially now. I think it's now pretty almost 50-50, right?
It is, the same credit underwriting standards for anyone, for any gender, honestly.
Right.
So, at the end of the day, what's really, really missing out there is the amount of female business owners.
Right.
It's not necessarily their access to capital.
Mm-hmm.
If they have a plan, if they have a brand,
Mm-hmm.
if they have a thriving business, absolutely.
Yeah.
They can do just as much.
That's right. That's right. You mentioned, Mieko, that the small business development centers helped you in a big way to get started and to kind of guide you, which is a phenomenal organization. And I think, Maria, that's one of those organizations out there that women need to reference to put together their business plan, right? So do men, for that matter, right?
I think it's also just knowing that resource is around,
Right.
right? I think a lot of people Google and they try looking up all of those different pieces, and it's sometimes challenging to find a one-stop shop that tells you what resources to go, where to start, and one of the things I think has been stable is those small business development centers, because they're partly state funded and they're partly federally funded.
Right.
And having that resource has been really, really helpful, and as a baseline, because also they cover not only starting up, but also to the end part of succession of businesses.
That's right. That's right. It's also a great networking. And to your point, it doesn't cost the participant any money. It's already funded through state and federal programs, right?
Yes, correct.
Yeah, which is a beautiful thing. For women out there that are thinking about jumping in and starting their business, maybe they've got an idea for a product or a service and they haven't done it yet. Maria, what would your advice be? And then, of course, Mieko, I'll ask you the same thing.
Again, I would say look to the experts. Make sure you join as many networking groups as you can. I think Mieko's group is fabulous to look into, right? Building your brand is key, and research. So whatever you are thinking of starting, do the research. There's so many ways that we can research now with AI to see, what are the risk factors, what does the industry look like, and just build that strong group around you.
Yeah,
I think that is the key.
That's right. Mieko, what about you? You're living it every day. What advice do you have for those women that are listening to us right now around the country that are thinking about starting a business?
I think be willing to be vulnerable. So all too often, I've found that people like to hold on for like a little piece of coal, holding onto their diamond idea, but they're too afraid to share it.
Right.
And I think one of the things that has been wonderful about doing the meetups that we have is that people are gradually like as they share what their ideas are, they're actually able to get immediate feedback. I think that interaction of other individuals is really helpful in refining an idea. And so let me give you an example. I had a young woman back in March. She came to one of our meetups and she said, I think I have this idea of creating a shop that brings in people's kind of leftover art materials, like if they have excess of it. And she just said it, like she wasn't sure about like whether sharing it. And everybody around her applauded. We're like, we need a store like that in our community. And in May, she opened that shop and offering not only also a third space for creative people, but like all these people donated stuff. So it was I told her immediately right after, it's like, you've got your market research, you're in demand, like you should do it.
That's right. No question about it. Maria Rassoulis, who's the Senior Vice President of Business Banking at Citizens Bank, and Mieko Ozeki, who is the founder of Radiance Studios. Thank you so much for joining me on the show. This has been great. I'd love to do a follow-up with you to see how things are moving along on this very, very important issue.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for having us.
Thanks.
Thanks for joining us for another edition of The Small Business Show with Jim Fitzpatrick, exclusively on ASBN.com.